Welcome back. I am Cori Panyard. I am the Program Director for Learnwell Collective's Navigator Programs. This is our homeschool support portion of Learnwell Collective. I'm here with Dr. Melissa Shipman, our founder and principal and educator extraordinaire. And this is video 2 of our Co-op 101, how to start a co-op, everything you need to just demystify this whole process, because it feels like a very overwhelming
for sure
and daunting process for somebody who is looking for community and going to start it themselves. So if you missed the first video, go back, because those are the very first steps. But today is going to be very practical, very nitty-gritty. We're going to be talking about things like schedules and training teachers, locations, agreements, communication, all of that. So let's dive in.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so let's talk about schedules, because let's say people have found their people, they have their why. One of the first things that they're going to have to, or one of the first bridges that they're going to have to cross is, when are we actually doing this? How often are we actually doing this? The calendars have to meet. So how does that work?
Well, first I would say, don't feel the pressure to, we have a co-op, we need to meet 5 days a week and do all of our homeschooling together. You may want that, but you also may elect to say, hey, our co-op is going to meet twice a week, and we're going to focus together on these subjects, or something like that. So you have to figure out how many days of the week, what hours in the day. I always add the caveat that most children are a little more focused in the morning. Not all. That doesn't always apply for to the adults either, but know that generally mornings are a pretty good bet, especially for subjects like your math and your writing, your reading, things that take a little bit more focus and concentration. And then just as you're thinking about a schedule, a daily schedule, just remember that you're going to need breaks. You're going to need movement breaks. You've mentioned this before.
Wiggle breaks.
Absolutely. They absolutely need that. They need all the gross motor movement that helps. If you can take breaks and have them work on I always say this, work on their multiplication facts on the trampoline. That's just good learning.
So or hopscotch if you're meeting somewhere else. If you just get some sidewalk chalk, just draw it right there, and it's lots of jumping around, lots of movement to be able to incorporate.
Absolutely. So as you're envisioning this, I would encourage you not to think about children seated in straight rows all day. Think about this being a little bit more organic and flowing, but at the same time, you do need some kind of schedule. You'll need to eat lunch at some point, and so I think even a small decision is lunch just lunch? Do we just all bring our brown bags and have lunch? Or is lunch an opportunity for learning? Might we once a week or every other week have one of the moms lead the kids in making homemade pizza, cookies, whatever, work on those fractions as you're measuring out ingredients and all of that.
Absolutely.
And so lots of things to consider as you're building that schedule.
And there might have to be some meeting of the minds of who's even involved, because different families may have other obligations at different times of the day too. So all of that is going to have to be decided really before you can move forward in those logistics type of things.
For sure.
So shortly after you all coalesce your calendars, the question is going to come up, who is teaching what and how are we doing this? Because that's the whole point of this co-op, is that we want these littles or these big kids to be able to learn something. There's a lot of different feelings and a lot of different confidence levels among parents in teaching different subjects. How do we go about finding teachers or deciding that among the co-op?
Well, probably at this point you have found your group, you have agreed on a schedule. You need to have a really honest conversation about everybody's strengths and weaknesses. You just do. That might be, if you are kind of taking on the helm of sort of the co-op coordinator, maybe you have those individually, maybe you all are friends and can just have this together over coffee, but you need to identify, who is the mom that feels comfortable teaching math. And of course that math, that's always the question about the grade level. There's, K through 4th math, and then there's middle school, 5th grade math can get beyond sometimes what we all remember from our own school days. And so writing is another area I would really look for which mom is going to teach writing. And does she have any kind of writing background, or has she been homeschooling and writing long enough that she feels really comfortable in leading the kids in that.
Right.
If you have moms who are like, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm your person for math, I'm not sure I'm your person for writing, but I'm all in. I mean, maybe they are the people who lead little PE sessions and
Absolutely.
baking cookies and doing some things like that. Everybody needs a role, but you just are going to have to figure out who teaches what and at what level, and that will depend on your schedule as well.
Because the level is a big deal. Somebody who might not be sure that they are the math or the writing teacher for upper elementary or middle school may be completely comfortable doing that for K through third.
Right.
And so that's really just going to have, like you said, fill out what are people's strengths and what are their experiences, so that they can really lean into that.
Yeah,
we all do better when we lean into our strengths.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So once you've decided that, though, I feel like we're not quite ready to leave this whole teacher question. Because then there's also a question of equipping. So let's say we have some friends here who feel really confident in teaching 4th or 5th grade math, but they are not particularly adept at leading a group of kids. And let's say our little co-op has like 3, 4, 5 kiddos. That can cause some different dynamics. So how do you go about either finding resources or equipping teachers to be able to do things like that classroom management, or even at that point when you have multiple kids, you might have multiple levels. You might have kids who need some enrichment, and then you might have kids who need some remediation, and those are different skills too. Talk to me about that.
Well, it's super important. It's super important. The bigger your co-op is, the more important that's going to be. If each parent is only going to be working with 2 children at a time, things like group management, classroom management, probably not going to be a huge issue.
Right.
But if you have a bigger co-op, some of these co-ops get to be, 8, 10 families. Honestly, I would really encourage you to just make sure that you're having regular conversations about these topics. Let's not pretend that this is an issue that we need to manage behaviors if we have a larger group of kids around our kitchen table. Let's make sure we're talking about it. Let's make sure that we're really gracious, loving, and kind, but direct. Because everybody's mom presumably will be there, or parent will be there, so that feels a little delicate sometimes. But if you can just agree together from the beginning that when there are problem behaviors, and please say it that way because nobody's child is perfect, when there are problem behaviors, this as a group is how we're committing to handle those together. I think that will serve you really well. And then beyond that, for both classroom management type strategies, and for sure in differentiation, which is our education word for having children in the same class at different levels, I just encourage you to do a little bit of preliminary research. I'm trying to think about some of the good places that you might be able to go, but don't just Google and read what Wikipedia has to say about differentiation.
Oh my goodness.
Make sure that you're finding some good resources from some trusted sources. There may, an unconventional source might be some long-established homeschool blogs. There are some people who've been homeschooling a long time, have led co-ops, and have some good things to say. Someone that I enjoy reading about homeschooling is Deborah Bell, and she actually wrote the first The Idiot's Guide to Homeschooling, those yellow books that we used to have. And she's done a lot of writing about different aspects of homeschooling, and she and her family were part of co-ops and schools along the way. And so just find some resources from time to time, but always maintaining that kind and supportive posture would be great as you lead.
This is so important. And we can pop some of those resources that you just mentioned and a couple others that we have down in the notes, the description underneath the video. And we would love for you guys to chime in too in the comments. Let us know if you have particular resources for either just training teachers in a co-op or the differentiation tactics, let us know. We would love to kind of start a dialogue there and kind of support and help each other. That's what this is all about. So you talked about something that I think is really important that I want to zoom in on a little bit, though, and that was the communication piece, because that direct communication really is a gift. I don't know about you. I don't always love having to be direct, and I don't always love direct communication because it feels like there's all kinds of opportunity for conflict. And yet, it is such a gift in this context to not beat around the bush or to just allude to things and hope that somebody picks something up. It's just going to make problems persist so much longer. So just a group agreement that's how we're communicating, and we're not going to be easily offended. We believe the best in each other. Feels really, really important. On that same note, there are some logistical parts of the communication, too. When we have conversations, maybe those are in-person conversations to be able to have versus when we're just trying to figure out, hey, who's leading our lunch cooking demonstration? Are those emails? Are those texts? Are, what is the preferred method of conversation?
I think that's communication. Depend on your group.
Yes,
but I think the more sensitive the conversation, I would encourage you to move towards in-person for sure. A casual text about a child's behavior to his or her mom is not probably going to result in the response that you would like. And so as much as you can, as hard as it is to have those conversations together, would be great. And so, we're talking about things like that, and you might be listening and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to do this with my 3 best friends. All of our kids grew up together. This is not going to be a problem. This is one of I would unfortunately say one of the issues around which co-ops sometimes fail. Is everybody's not on the same page with student behavior, the child behavior, and we don't really want to confront each other. It's sensitive, it's hard, and so that it can just be so awkward. So if we just want to encourage you to go in and as a group of moms probably acknowledge, hey, I don't have perfect kids. Do you have perfect kids? None of us have perfect kids. And they're going to misbehave sometimes. And so what do we already said this, what do we agree is the right way to handle that together? I think you'll be so much further ahead if you just start with that expectation.
And then hopefully you will need it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It could be great, and it's not
Maybe
a problem.
You, in fact, do have perfect children, and congratulations.
In which case,
that's awesome.
Well done. I need to take notes. But going in with a plan, starting with a plan first, is going to really be a safeguard for your entire group and for your relationships, especially if you're doing this with friends.
Absolutely.
If you can be upfront about that first. Other logistical things on communication, whoever is coordinating the group, if you're watching this, that's probably you. Congratulations. You are probably going to want to think through what the frequency of that communication is. Maybe having a weekly email where it just gets everybody on the same page.
That's a great
just
job.
Confirm schedules, confirm everybody's available, confirm here are the things that we're introducing. Are there any supplies that we need? Who's bringing what? Those sort of things, having kind of a weekly touch point is going to help streamline some of that communication and probably cut down on other things.
That's good.
Potentially also just thinking through, you as the coordinator, what does that communication look like for you? What is your bandwidth? What do you have the capability to do and the capacity to do, so that this doesn't become massively overwhelming for you either?
We don't want that.
No, that starts to defeat the whole point of this. All right, so we talked about schedules, we've talked about teachers, we've talked about communication, kind of a little side jaunt to communication, and just being really upfront to begin with, our initial agreements. So there's a bunch of different ways that can happen. What have you seen work well? What have you seen not work well?
That's a really good question. I really do encourage you to, as a group, come into an agreement with each other, not a contract, not a, sign on the dotted line and you're committed no matter what, that you're sticking with us till May, but just a formal way of saying, hey, we're all in for this school year. We would like to go ahead and just lay out the guidelines, and we've all talked, we've agreed that we're going to meet on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 to 2. Here are the things that we've agreed on, and just ask people to maybe it is checking a box, maybe it is responding to a text. It really depends on if we're talking about a group of strangers or a group of good friends.
Right.
But just, if you as the coordinator, just make sure you set expectations. That's really the key word from the get-go. That will really help. You asked about some things that I've seen that have really led to the demise of a co-op. Of course, there are always just things that we aren't always in control of, like a relocation or something like that.
Of course.
But then sometimes there are issues of curriculum, and so that's another really big conversation that you need to have before you even get going, is agreeing on the curriculum or agreeing to not agree on the curriculum. Maybe, in a bigger co-op where our fourth graders are going to be working in this curriculum, but somebody really loves another curriculum for our kindergartners, and so we're going to work on this one. So it doesn't have to be that it's the same for every child at every level, but if you're going to homeschool cooperatively, you need to be on the same page with curriculum. And so from time to time, I have seen with co-ops just a disagreement about curriculum, and a little bit of a stance by about November, December of, I didn't want to do this math curriculum anyway, and my Billy doesn't like it, and so we're out. And so the more, again, you can set expectations, try to be on the same page, take everyone's input into consideration at the beginning, the better. Because I would say that the ball game in co-ops thriving or disintegrating is just expectations.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. The curriculum piece is a really big one. That's actually why our next video is going to center a lot around curriculum and academics. So we are going to hook you up. We've got some things to talk about there just to set you up well, set your co-op well, set those expectations in the academic portion well. But it's really good to be reminded that getting everybody on the same page, even if it's like, we're going to agree to disagree, and here's how we're going to do that, to kind of keep the peace is a really big deal in the longevity of being able to maintain a co-op. This has been so much. There's just one more like logistics, non-academic logistics piece that I want to make sure that we touch on, because even if you have schedules and you have teachers and you have communication, you need a location. Where are we even doing this?
Where are we doing this?
Where are we meeting? And that can be really flexible and might actually depend on your why. Because I've seen several co-ops that might surround an idea of like, we want to be out in nature. And so location might actually be connected to kind of broader purpose.
Absolutely.
But it might also just be that really practical thing of who has enough space.
Who has enough space, or if three of us have enough space, might we rotate so that everyone's not hosting all the time?
Yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just setting that up from the beginning, I think, will really serve you well.
Yeah. It is important to note that sometimes, depending on where you live, I mentioned, get out in nature, and that's super fun. And now that I said that, I was like, oh, we should do more of that. And I'm remembering the reason that we don't do more of that is sometimes when you go in public places, you do need a permit, especially for a larger group.
True.
So depending on where you're at, maybe look at local ordinances and just make sure that you can have a group of kids all doing one thing wherever you want to do them, or check with local authorities, especially if it's a field trip or fun activities.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely, that's probably going to be more okay.
Like,
it's more the
we're
going to
use the pavilion at the park down the road every Wednesday morning. That you might want to call your local rec department and just make sure that you don't need to reserve that, or it might be first come, first serve. Who knows? But just check.
So just know there might be some wrinkles there. You might want to put out some feelers before you really get your hopes up that this is going to be your thing.
The place.
So public locations, there's my caveat there.
Right. Good.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
We covered
Thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, well done. At this point, you are very well equipped to be able to get all of those nuts and bolts in place. We've kind of laid the groundwork. So from here, next time, like I said, academics, curriculum, and we'll be almost there. So until next time.
Bye.